Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
Namaste. Welcome to Jaipur Dialogues. I am Siri, a student and an activist with Mission Kali, and it's really wonderful to be on Jaipur Dialogues and inviting Sri Dixit ji for a change.
Namaste, Siri. How are you?
Hey, Sri Dixit ji. I'm fine. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you.
So, I'm Siri. I'm a student and an activist with Mission Kali. Mission Kali is basically completely focused on countering illegal activities of Christian missionaries in India in all possible means, and we also file complaints against them. So, with your permission, I would like to interview you on evangelization in India.
Okay, that's good. So, for a change, you're putting me in the dock in the Jaipur Dialogues. That's
Yes.
the new format that we have got. And I hope to be in the dock as often as possible with all the brilliant students and youthful activists. So, welcome, Siri, on Jaipur Dialogues. And you're
Thank you,
welcome
sir.
to shoot your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for giving me this wonderful opportunity, sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, with your permission, I'll be starting our interview.
Please.
My first question to you, sir, is what are the limits of religious freedom in India?
See, the limits of religious freedom are set out in the Constitution of India. Basically, there's what is called the freedom of conscience and freedom of religion that is laid down in Article 25 and up to Article 28. So 25, 26, 27, 28. These are the articles that deal with freedom of conscience and freedom of religion. And in Article 25 also, you are given the limits, they're supposed to be subject to morality, subject to the law and order, and subject to sovereignty and integrity of the country. And also, all these rights, actually, these are supposed to be four rights, freedom of conscience and freedom to profess, practice, and propagate your religious beliefs. And the whole problem actually occurs with this term called propagate. I'll come to that in a minute. And in Article 25(2), the state also has the right to make laws with respect to what are called economic, financial, secular, and political activities related to a denomination or a religious group. There's also problems with this term called a denomination. I'll also explain that in a bit. So, this term propagating religion was widely discussed in the Constituent Assembly. And it was under the influence and under the persuasion of our then Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, that this term propagation came to be included, because a lot of people had misgivings about propagating religion. In fact, if you remember, even Mahatma Gandhi had objected to the evangelizing activities of the church. And they said that he had said that this is a very, very sinful activity. That's what even Mahatma Gandhi thought. Because what they were doing was that they were taking advantage of the indigent condition of certain groups, and then they were inviting them over to the church. He thought that it was a very sinful activity, and it is. It actually does not accord with any sense of morality anywhere. So this is Article 25. Then Article 26 is actually the rights of the various religious groups. Now, Article 26 is unique, that our Constitution doesn't only give right to the citizens, it also gives rights to corporate bodies called persons, and it also gives rights to communities or groups, as in Article 26. But in Article 26, the term that is used is denomination, and it was not translated properly till the 1970s and 1980s, and even if it did, they actually used the word sampradaya. But because we follow the English common law and everything in the Supreme Court is done in English, they have taken a very, very narrow view of this term denomination. And then denomination, as in English common law, extends only to belief-based religions. So the Hindu sampradayas actually have suffered on account of that, but then that battle is on, and I think this should get clarified in the Shabarimala case, where we have some great representation from the legal fraternity, especially some brilliant young lawyers are there. So these are the problems with the limits that are prescribed. The limits are well prescribed, but then the case law, as laid out by the Supreme Court, hasn't really worked to the advantage of the targeted groups, the groups that are targeted for this so-called propagation. Even though I must say that there are a number of states which have got this anti-conversion law, and the Supreme Court case law clearly holds that propagation does not include conversion. And most certainly, organized conversion is completely anathema to the constitutional scheme of things. But what is happening is actually transgression of law. A rule of law is being violated, where people are being converted through allurements and through bribes and through coercion and through what I would say plain fraud, by making miracles and things, and giving an inflated account of the beliefs that people hold. And not just that, even impersonation is being practiced. So all this is not permitted according to the case law that has been laid down by the Supreme Court. But the enforcement is lacking. And in certain areas, in fact, there is active collusion also. So these are the problems. Even though the limits are well defined, I must say I do not have any issue with the law, because I think the limits are well defined. It's a question of how to enforce the law and also how to make the law, because the state has been given enough powers to make the law. You see, there's so many exceptions given. You can make a law because there is an exception for law and order. You can make a law because there is under an exception to morality. It is absolutely immoral to go and deceive somebody and convert him, or make him what is called a rice bag convert. You know that term very well. It's also immoral. It is against principles of law and order, and it is also, actually, if you look at the longer term, it is also against the unity and integrity of India, because we know that these groups, certain church groups, are actively involved in sabotaging the country's integrity and sovereignty, especially in the Northeast. So these are the limits, I would say, not properly enforced. And of course, the problems you know and I know. So that is the issue at stake here.
Yeah. So my next question is, can evangelizing non-believers be termed as a challenge to the religious tolerance in our country?
Oh, it is. Definitely, it is a challenge to religious tolerance. In fact, what has happened is that this term tolerance is used by typically the Abrahamic groups, because in their creed, they only tolerate, they do not accept the other. Unlike the Sanatana Dharma, where all paths are not just held valid, but they are accepted as valid. It is not the question of, okay, I do not accept you as valid, but I will tolerate you. That is not the position in Sanatana Dharma. All paths are actually accepted as valid. There is no if and but about it. But in the evangelizing religion, in Islam and Christianity, even if they coexist, they are only tolerating you. And that tolerance kind of a thing is only temporary. As soon as they are in a situation not to tolerate, then they start their activities. They start their oppressive activity of conversion. You see, the tribals
Right.
have lived for
Yes.
so many millennia along with the Sanatan Dharma,
Right.
without Sanatan Dharma ever trying to force them to come to their way of life. They respected and accepted their unique way of life.
Hmm.
And till 20th century, they had no issues. But it was only in late 19th and 20th century when these evangelists, these Christians came, this Christian group, they started telling the tribals that what you're doing is satanic. Just imagine the people who've been living for thousands and thousands of years a certain way of life, they are now being told that their way of living is satanic. I think it was not just immoral, it was absolutely criminal. And it was also criminal on part of our first prime minister to allow these kind of people like Warrior Elwin, to go into Northeast and give him a free pass. He used to tell the chief ministers not to disturb Warrior Elwin's activities. And in the garb of being a friend of the tribals, he was actually doing conversion. It's almost exactly the same what Mother Teresa was doing. And she was also termed as a great savior, which she wasn't. Because she was a very, very, I would say, malevolent evangelist.
Right.
So these follies on part of our leadership are also responsible for this.
Right. So, is converting an Indian village into a Christ village a violation of religious freedom in our country?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I explained it to you in response to your first question that this amounts to almost a criminal activity because this is done by way of allurement, coercion, and impersonation. These are the three methods that are employed for converting a village wholesale, and it is an organized activity. The freedom of propagation, when it is not allowed as an organized activity. It is
What do you
allowed for faithful
uh,
to. Sorry, you're saying something?
what do you suggest? Like, how should yes? I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. Yeah. What do you suggest? How do we stop this activity, like converting this in normal Indian village into a Christ village?
No, we have to be upfront about it. We have to build resistance groups, and we also have to educate our people because when these people go in, they are not upfront. They adopt various deceptions and devious methodologies. They do not tell them that they are actually converting them. They just go there and they act as if they go and project Jesus as Shri Krishna or adopt some deities, and they initially just tell them that okay, there is no change because Indians have the plurality of deities, and there is no inhibition on adopting more deities than one. So okay, it's just another deity, and once you get into their grips, then what they do is that they detach you out of their form of faith. So this is basically cheating. Is cheating, and this is punishable under Section 419 and Section 420 of the Indian Penal Code as well. And I hope the people who have awareness about this, and also it is our responsibility to increase awareness among people that these kind of devious activities are taking place, which I find that Mission Kali is doing quite well, and especially in this era of social media.
Thank you.
I think you're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you. So, foreign Christian missionaries collect and display like every individual's information, like your information, my information, like telling us how many people are converted every day. But then our government official website says only 2% are Christians. So, what is the reason behind hiding these actual percentage of Christian population?
Actually, you know what? I'll tell you that this publication of figures and publication of names, first of all, it is a violation of our right to privacy. Right to privacy is now exalted as a constitutional right. So all of us, any one of us, can agitate that right, and actually demand it from the state that this be stopped, because it is a complete violation of privacy. You remember that the Supreme Court initially said that you cannot even give your private information even to the your mobile operating companies, even to the
Yes.
mobile companies, even to the others, anybody who wanted that, the business entities. They could not get it. They had to bring out a separate law. And here, there are these very powerful groups, mostly settled in the US, who are gathering this information and posting it on their website. This is criminal, and this can be prosecuted. And certainly, if there is no law, then the state can be forced to make a law through a writ petition under Article 21, because the right to privacy is protected under Article 21, which is right to life. So that is the way to go, actually. And the other thing is that when you say that these people are displaying and these people are claiming this and that, a lot of these claims are done with a purpose to gather funds, because they have to make exaggerated claims to their clients, their donors, in order to get those funds.
Yeah.
But at least I am happy that, just a day before this interview that you're taking, the government of India has banned foreign donations and suspended FCRA licenses of some major groups,
Hi.
some very major
Yes.
groups.
Hello.
And even people like Seventh Day Adventist and the Baptist Church, some of the oldest evangelist organizations, they are also under scanner. And initially, yesterday, I had seen 4 suspended and 2 under scanner. And today, the report comes where actually there are 13 groups, the total 13
Okay.
groups whose licenses have been suspended. This is a very important measure, because you know that I think that you remember that that compassion group in Kerala, and the compassion group in Kerala, once their license was revoked and they could not get funding from outside, they had to disband and go away, and their entire network became unemployed. They were unable to support their activities. They were unable to support their what is called their educational institutions, their convents, and they had to close it down. They had to close it down and go away to the US. So I think this is a very important non-invasive technique in the hands of the government, and I'm happy that the government has taken cognizance of that and started this activity. Now we need to keep petitioning the government to bring in a uniform law, because right now some states have the law and some states do not have. The advantage of having a law is that even if the state is not enforcing it, you can always go to the court and ask for a mandamus to have it enforced. And
Yes.
that time the hands of the authorities are forced, actually. I agree that there is a problem of what is called crypto Christians, but I do not think it is as acute as it is made out to be, because a lot of these claims that these people make over their websites are highly exaggerated claims. Highly means they're exaggerated to the tune of almost 90-95%, and that they do in order to gather funds from their donors.
Hello. Yeah. So, generally, what is your opinion on Christian missionaries? They differentiate Hinduism from Indian culture, like wearing a Mangal Sutra. They simply say that this is Indian culture. It has nothing to do with Hinduism. So, what is your opinion on that?
Oh, they're just being ridiculous. Actually, this has been going on for a long time. If you have read the story of Caldwell and G.U. Pope and Roberto Di Nobili, and the way they brought in that Aryan invasion theory and implied that Aryan invasion theory, which is absolutely false theory, not just a false theory. It's again a scandal. And in fact, it's such a big scandal that they named it as a theory. They gave it a nomenclature of a theory without ever having proven it, because there is a certain process for declaring some position as a theory, some principle as a theory, and that is a scientific validation method. It never happened. It's just that Max Muller declared it as a theory and it became a theory. That was because we were colonized that time, but our mental colonization did not go away because he had a mentally colonized first prime minister. He was so mentally colonized, and his entire dynasty is so mentally colonized even today that anything Indic, anything Indian, anything Hindu, they feel that it is something alien to their personal culture. So it is because of that for almost 50, 60 years, there was absolutely no move. Whatever little was done was because of the native intelligence of the chief ministers of particular states. I remember Warrior Elwin, when he was going very strong in the northeast, some chief ministers tried to intervene. They got the wrath of the prime minister and they had to desist. And he got a free pass to convert the entire northeast. And you look at the situation in the northeast today.
Yeah.
So there have been some very unfortunate chapters in our post-independence history, but I hope things are getting corrected now. And ultimately, it is we, you and me, who are going to put pressure on the government. This is a democracy, and in democracy, the governments work only under public pressure. If the public doesn't put a pressure, then the government doesn't have any urgency to act on these matters. If we keep on putting pressure, the way Mission Kali is doing, I'm sure that more of such actions as to what happened yesterday and day before are going to take place. And once their funding is stopped, I think a great deal of mischief can be curbed. We will still have to deal with things like a chief minister directly supporting evangelization in Andhra Pradesh. But then Andhra Pradesh is not going to be that much of an easy cake to eat. In Tamil Nadu and Kerala, these activities have a very long history, going back almost 1.5 centuries. Even then, they have not been able to make much of a headway. And today, in Tamil Nadu, we see a resurgence. That old Dravidian politics, all those old Dravidian politicians are now making a beeline, going to the temples and making public show of Ganesh Vandana and Ganesh Puja on Ganesh Chaturthi day. It does hold a lesson for us that ultimately our culture is so vibrant, our dharma is so vibrant and so resilient that no matter what you do, it always finds a way of bouncing back. So that gives me a lot of hope and heart.
Yeah. So my last question to you, sir, is how can an investigation on foreign funding and on illegal large land banks owned by Christian missionaries be done?
I think people are doing it. In fact, this particular action that happened yesterday, day before, it is a result of petitions which have been made by various groups, and the name of some of those groups are there in the newspapers. You can see that. And those petitions these people have been making for a long time, and particularly, I think one of the focus has been Jharkhand, which has a large tribal population, and these people have been very active. Jharkhand government, the previous Jharkhand government had even brought in a law of banning conversion, which still exists. So where there is a law and there is not enough enforcement, then it is our duty, the people who are with us and the organizations, like-minded organization, it is our duty to utilize the judicial process to force the hands of the government. Ultimately, it is our vigilance that will keep these forces at bay. If you just leave everything to the government, things are not going to work out. And in democracy, it is very dangerous to leave everything to the government. Public should be ever vigilant. And that vigilance, we have to not just continue, but we have to keep mounting more and more vigilance. That is the key to our ultimate success. And that ultimate success will be when we are able to stop this coercive activity completely. No coercion, no allurement, no bribes, and the people, these religious clerics, be confined to holding their masses in the church. And the basic doctrine is so weak that you can see what is happening in the West. In fact, the urge to convert more people is because the churches, especially the evangelical churches, have a problem of subsistence. As so many churches are closing down that they are not getting funds, and ultimately, if you trace the history of the church, it is a political organization. And that used to be, there used to be only 2-3 churches. There used to be the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, and the Syrian Church. But now they are proliferated, and all of them need money. All of them are basically political organization masquerading as religious groups. And they need money, they need funding. So, and their donors will donate to them only if they can show on paper that they are doing expansion work, or they are at least their flock of their members is increasing. And in the US, it is going down every day. So, how to
Churches are
supplement that?
turning into bars.
Yes, so they come here and they convert some and make some absurd claims in order to get more and more money. This money is coming from abroad, we know that. And if that particular tap is switched off, then they get into serious trouble. I think you will see what happens. I think since you're on the ground, I would like you to tell me, say a month from now, 2 months from now, what is the impact of
Sure.
this particular action that the central government has taken. So
Definitely.
I wish you all good luck, and I wish you the ultimate success.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for spending your valuable time answering my questions. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, like providing me with this big platform. Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram.